During this portion, we are going to finish up our roadway. We are going to create a typical section and then use that typical section to model the roadway by running that typical section down the alignment and profile that we created previously. And our training guide will be on page 1-26, where we'll create what we call a composite section, defining what's going on the left and right side of the roads, and then that'll carry us through to the bottom of page 1-32, where we actually run the typical section or apply it. So let's get started. We're going to get into our Power Civil design file that's located in our Data Geosite Site Modeler Lab 1 folder. So we'll open that up, and we'll also want to make sure that you're in your model. So we're going to open up our project file in Power Civil. So I'm going to go ahead and select my Site Modeler tool, which brings up my project wizard, open up my file, and be in there. Now at this point, we've created the alignment by storing graphics on the center line. We drew a ground profile using the Draw Profile tool. That's located here. And we used our vertical component tools to lay out a proposed profile as shown here and stored that information in the coordinate geometry. So at this point, what we're going to do is create a typical section. And we do that through Modeler under the Tools menu called Composite Section. Composite Section is a tool where we basically can define many site elements at once. So it's very useful for things like roadways, where I have a left side and a right side, as shown here in the tabs. And I want to define multiple information on the left-hand side of an element and multiple information on the right-hand side. Now in our case, we're going to run a composite section, and all the site elements that it creates will be added to the entrance road. Now the composite section also has a section manager. So we hope that eventually you'll have multiple typical sections stored, and you'll just save them off and they'll appear here in this list, and you can scroll through the list and pick the one you want. Once you pick it, you simply double click on it, and what happens is it fills out the left side and right side tabs on the dialog with the appropriate information, and then you simply hit apply and run. Now for our case here in this exercise, we'll go ahead and create it, the left side and right side. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the left side details tab, and I'm going to focus my attention again on the entrance road. Now I'm going to be running this kind of hinged on the center line, and the first thing I want to do is on the left hand side is I want to go out there as I work from my way around. I want to go out there and define the edges of pavement. Now in this case, my pavement is an orange graphic, and it's 12 feet or so from the center line. So what I'm defining is an element as a break line at a -2% from my primary element being the center line, and my projection option being entire element. Now what it's going to do is I have to define what it's searching for. That would be the edge of pavement graphically. So on the sample graphic, I'll just right click on it, set it by element, click one of the orange lines, click again, and that'll fill out the appropriate level, weight, and color and style. And then the maximum distance to search for that away from the center line, I'll just say 13 feet. That way it'll make sure it gets the element if it was drawn a little bit further than it should have been. So that defines the edge of pavement. We include a section viewer here, and you can bring that up, and you can see the center line we're coming down at 2%. So I can see what's going on as I create it. Now after that, center line, the next thing I want to do in the list is I want to put a section, a curb and gutter section. So we define that here in the dialog by element type section. Now a section is like a typical, could be used for, curb and gutter, sidewalk. It's something that's going to be horizontally and vertically related to its parent element, or in this case, the edge of pavement. So for example, my curb and gutter will never deviate as far as width. It will never deviate in width and height from the edge of pavement. So it'll always maintain that some sort of relationship. So I'm always going to have, like, for example, a 1.5 foot wide gutter. I'm always going to have a 6-inch high curb. In those situations, it's a great idea to use a section to define that information or model that. So our element type is a section. On this side of the road, on the left-hand side, we're going to make it a boundary, so it's the farthest thing out that's going to be part of our roadway from the center line. The table is how I'm going to section. I could have a graphic, which is a cell, and that could define my section surface, but I'm going to create a table here in the dialog with offset distances and elevations. So the first thing, I'm sitting there at the edge of pavement, and I'm going to work my way out. So I'm going to go 1.5 feet out, and I'm going to drop down minus 0.2. That forms the gutter. Now this is where we're going to take advantage of our DNC manager that has in it items on how to draw, in this case, gutter. So I'm going to hit select pay item, and I'm going to scroll down to my plan folder in my DNC. So let me just collapse all the folders real quick, and we'll kind of navigate down to it. So in my DDB file, I have 3 main folders. I'm going to go under the pay item folder, into the plan folder, into the roadway folder, and there I have items associated with drawing roadways, and one of them is a gutter line, so DES gutter. So I'm going to highlight that, click OK, and that has the necessary symbology built into it to draw it appropriately. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to the list here. Now if I leave that pay item information blank, then basically all the software does is draw it in the active symbology, well, in this case on the default level, style 0, color 0, weight 0. Now that I've defined the offset distance for the gutter line, now I'm going to go to the top of curb. So I'm going to go 1.7 feet away from the edge of pavement will be the top of curb. Go 0.5 higher than the edge of pavement. In that case, the item is going to be curb top front. So the appropriate symbology to draw that. And then 2 feet away from the edge of pavement and the same height or offset distance from the edge of pavement is the back of curb. And that has a pay item name of DESCTP. So I'll add that as well. All this information is being put on the left side of the edge of pavement, which is going to be the element above it in the list. So I add that into the left side, and you can see in the section viewer, to the left side are those 3 elements: the gutter line, the top of curb front, and the top of curb back. And that's what it looks like in a cross section. Now also on the left side I have another element. I have this dashed line that kind of from the curb return in the parking lot entrance to the other curb return, I have a dashed element, and I want to make sure that I slope over to that as well and pick that up and make it a side element. I'm going to maintain the same slope as I did on the edge of pavement, but this particular item I'm going to set it to feature, make it a boundary, same slope, and I'm going to select the feature. Now this particular element, just to show you here, I'll hit select pay item. On the select design and computation manager dialog, I'm going to click the ID. I'm going to select that graphic, and it and data point again, and it highlights it there. So it's called a DES join line. So when I drew it, I used this item to draw it. Therefore, I can have it search for that item at a distance, just like searching earlier for an element or edge of pavement. I can search for that item, and any graphics that match that item information will be picked up and sloped to appropriately. So I'll go ahead and add that to the list. So that's the feature called boundary. And I'm going to go ahead and move that up to the top. So you can see we can arrange the order in which things are created. So the first thing we're going to do is define the boundary element, which is that join line graphic. Then we're going to go out there and slope to the edge of pavement, and then on the edge of pavement we're going to stick a section, or a curb and gutter section. So what I'm going to do is copy all that. So I'm going to highlight them all in the dialog. I'm going to copy them, and then on the right side I'm just simply going to paste. So I'm going to basically do the same thing on the left side right side that I did on the left. And just take a look at that in the viewer. You can see that, well, it looks a little strange over here on the curb and gutter. The other thing that I want to point out that's different on the right hand side of the road is that we have a bus lane. So it's we have widening here. So when I search for something, for example the edge of pavement, and I search 13 feet only, well, I'm not going to pick up these graphics here. They're 22 feet away. So what I need to do is increase my search distance. So in this case, I'm going to increase my search distance to 23 feet. So I highlight the item, change my max distance, and modify. So we're going to be picking up that extra lane there. The other thing that's interesting is the section. It's being applied to the left. While the left side of the edge of pavement is inside the road, the right side would be out. So on the right hand side of the road, I need to make sure my section goes to the right. I'll highlight that, modify it. Again, check the section viewer, and I can see it looks correct now. So the section viewer is handy for just checking, make sure everything's okay. So that kind of establishes my left and right side. Now you can save these off. I can do a save as, and save it as a name. And what happens is we create a little SEC file, and it has all the dialog information, and you can recall that again and again if you want. And you can also save it under the section manager too, so it pulls up there as well. Now as far as running it, I want to run it down my alignment. So I'm going to run it down my chain and profile that we created. So under primary element definition, I select chain and profile, click alignment definition, select my job, select my roadway. I only have one chain and profile. And the alignment element symbology, I'm going to go ahead and set that to a feature. And I'm going to click the little pay item, and I have a item up at the very top under drafting standards general called DES chains and baselines. I have an item set up to draw the center line. So what this tool, when it runs, it will create a graphic because it's creating a site element. It will create a graphic and assign elevation to it, and it will create the graphic in this symbology. Notice that the alignment symbology is the same as what I already have there for the graphic that I drew earlier that we stored into Kogo as a chain. So I really don't need that graphic there. I can actually just delete that graphic. So I delete it using Power Civil, just delete it. So I've selected my chain and profile. I'm going to turn my displays on. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit and click apply, and you'll see it create the roadway. So it models the roadway. It runs that typical section down there defining all the elements left and right. And we've modeled the road. So next we'll look at doing a parking lot.